Firstly, I'm excited to announce that I was selected to be a recipient for the New Zealand Society of Authors Mentorship Program for 2020. There were 13 writers selected, and I have been paired up with a mentor whom I'll be working with for the rest of this year. She will help me to hone my writing skills and help me to develop my novel into a piece of work that I could be proud of. The NZSA Mentor Program is supported by funding from Creative New Zealand, and it's been going since 1999 with very positive outcomes. I haven't had a chance to meet with my mentor yet face to face because being April 2020, we are still currently in lockdown during the global pandemic. So we have been communicating via email and phone. We've had some wonderful phone conversations, and she requested that I send through the first few chapters of my novel. Therein lies the problem, because I've never been happy with the first chapters that I've written. So in some ways it's a great place to start. It's also a very frustrating place to start, because when I first started writing my novel, after I had done a brief outline, I started from chapter 1 and kept writing until just over a year later when I reached the end of the book. And I feel like I actually developed my writing skills as I went, being that this is my first ever novel. So I've never been happy or satisfied with the start of the book. At the start, I lay down a lot of backstory. We learn a lot about the characters, and I know that saying, "but wait, it gets better," is not a very good strategy. So I've always had issues with the way the book starts, and I figured that I would worry about that later, but actually it's quite critical now. I need to figure out how to start the book off well. It starts with an inciting incident that could be a lot stronger, so I'm going to work on that and develop that. And I also need to decide on exactly how I want to narrate the story in terms of the overall structure of the narration and the time frame, and just get some certainty around the voice. It's quite likely that I will crunch down the first part of the book so that we get to the grittier parts sooner. So my mentor came back to me with very thorough and well-crafted feedback for the work that I sent her. And I'm incredibly grateful for the time she's put into showing me the weaker areas and offering suggestions of how I can improve on my writing. So it's very confronting to receive so much critiquing, so much feedback, but I needed it. So I really needed it, because it just wasn't working at the start. I could not be more grateful to have such expert advice from somebody who is very experienced and knowledgeable. I feel like I now have all the tools and resources to create a far more professional and engaging piece of work. My mentor has suggested that at this time I take a break from working on the writing and identify what the big idea is. So spend this time working on the premise, which is exactly what I need, because somewhere along the way I feel like I got carried away by the flow of the story and started to lose the connection to the premise. And of course it didn't help that my original idea for the book actually developed and evolved quite a lot as I went along and as the story progressed, especially because this happened over the span of about 15 months. Looking back, I should have made sure I had a clearer idea of what the premise was, even as it evolved, just to make sure that what I was writing was still aligning with the premise. So what I'm doing now is stripping everything back to the bare bones. I've dedicated a whole notebook to identifying my main character's likes, wants and needs, his desires, his goals, his fears, and what is most important to him, what he's scared of losing, what interests him the most. So this is what will help me to be really clear about the stakes, the goals, and therefore the character arc and the plot of the novel. I feel like most authors would have this established before they even start to write, but I'm learning. So as I explore these ideas, I'll be able to eventually drill down what the big idea is and just be so clear about it so that everything that happens in the book is driven by the premise. So the next thing I need to do is, again, something that I think a lot of authors probably do at the very start rather than in retrospect, and that is to write up scene cards. Everything that happens in the book, every event, every scene, I'm writing down on individual cards and then working out which ones are the most important to developing the character and progressing the plot. As I was writing my novel, I was excited to reach 100,000 words, which was around the same time as I reached the end of the book. The word count itself was never important. It's just that I like numbers, and it was a way of quantifying the work that I had done and a way that I could communicate and share that with others. And to say that it was half or 2/3 finished was never accurate anyway, because it was only the first draft, and in fact the greatest amount of work is most likely to happen after I've laid down that first draft. So I had never intended for the novel to remain at 100,000 words. I would expect it to sit at more around the 80,000 word mark. If it's less, that's great too, but I would rather have a shorter and tighter story than something that was long-winded and full of fluff. So when I look at what I have written so far to date, it feels like I have a very elaborate 100,000 word outline for a novel because it is pretty much the entire story laid out chronologically from beginning to end. And I now need to take what I've written, perhaps reformat it, restructure it, narrate it differently, condense it, chuck out some big chunks of it. I don't know, but this is the fun part now, is figuring out how I'm going to structure this piece of work so that it is delivered in the most engaging, interesting and meaningful way that I possibly can. So these here are all of the scenes that happen in the book, all of the different events and interactions. The colours don't mean anything. I just had different colours of post-its. When I ran out of purple, I moved on to the next colour. Right about here would be the climax of the story, the highest point. It's helped me to work out what things I might remove. There's quite a lot around this area that I might condense down, which will just help to tighten up that first part of the book. So that will bring quite a lot forward. I'll figure all of that out later. What I really need to work on now is the main character, what's important to him, what is the message of the book, and what is the big idea. I can see that there is a lot of work ahead of me, and I could not be more excited about that. To me, it's like drawing an outline, drawing a picture or a sketch, and then filling it in with colour. The colouring in is the fun part for me, and I have all the right tools and support and encouragement and resources around me to get the book to where it needs to be, to where I want it, for it to be something that I'm really proud of. Goodbye.